All right, we are recording now.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I've got 4 o'clock and I will call the meeting to order.
Henry, we can't see your video. Is that okay?
How's that?
That's much better.
Okay. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Let's do a roll call and we will establish the quorum. I'm here. Mary?
Here.
Lee?
Here.
Mary Ann?
Here.
Marcia?
Here.
Reagan? No Reagan. Okay, Allison?
Here.
And Mickey?
Here.
Okay.
It looks like
Reagan
Reagan's
can-
joining, Henry.
Good.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Hi, Reagan. Okay, excellent.
Do you want me to make a brief announcement?
Go ahead.
Apologies if you can hear the plane going overhead. So good afternoon. This open meeting of the Town Area Plan Work Group is meeting remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. This meeting is being recorded and all attendees are participating via Zoom as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. This meeting will feature public comment if any is offered. And let's see. Henry, I will turn it back to you. We've done the roll call. So
Okay, thank you. The agenda, any discussion, changes?
Henry, I do have an item to bring up under new business, which I emailed you about.
Okay. Approval of the draft minutes for May, June 7th, we didn't have one. May 20th. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? There's that blame. Okay, Mary, do you want to bring up the new business?
Yeah, so I received an email from Erica just notifying me of the current status of the governor's orders allowing meetings to be conducted entirely remotely. And the status has not been definitively resolved. There is a proposal to continue to allow remote meetings, but that has not been adopted yet. And so if we were not able to meet remotely, the current order expires July 15. We would have to meet in person with at least a chair and a quorum of membership. Other members would be able to attend remotely once a quorum is established in person. So I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that. And as we're following that, we may find out that our meeting, I think our next meeting is scheduled for July 15th. So that will be allowed to be remote, but our August meetings potentially might have to be in person, and we might have to make arrangements to find a place and so on. So just bringing that to people's attention.
Mary, does that mean that we can still attend remotely as long as there's a quorum present in person?
That's my understanding. So we go back to the rules of 3 years ago, which did allow remote attendees. The caveat there was that they don't count for quorum.
Right.
So in order to have a meeting, you have to have a quorum present, and the person chairing the meeting must be present as well.
And we can still do Zoom.
We can still have Zoom participants, yes.
Right, great.
Yeah, and Mary, to add to Mickey's question, the benefit of using Zoom is the record function. And so even if only one person shows up by Zoom, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to continue to do that so that we can get everything recorded. Now, that does mean we have to meet in a room that has the camera and screen.
That's an interesting point, Lee. I hadn't thought that far ahead. I know that some of the meeting rooms for the town are equipped for NCTV recording. So that's the alternative to a Zoom recording. But that's only under the contract with NCTV that they would record it. And I doubt that we rate that kind of attention.
No, Mary, if we've got the Zoom camera, we just record to the cloud and then the town can post it.
Right. Yeah, so I think there'll be a lot of details that need to be ironed out if they do not extend the permission.
We would be meeting in that trailer.
I imagine that's where we would be meeting.
More than likely, that's where people are being directed. Several of the former meeting rooms have now been repurposed into offices. For example, in the Plus building, there used to be a meeting room there, not anymore. DPW has meeting facilities. I'm not sure whether anybody will want to go out Mattocket Road.
Water company has it though.
Yes,
Yeah, we'll be in competition with every other committee for the available space, whatever that might be.
Is there any reason why we couldn't meet at the Athenaeum?
I don't know what the protocols are, so not that I'm aware of.
We had a meeting there for the historical commission and it worked well only because several people brought laptops with them. So we could do Zoom for people holding their laptops in front of them. And when somebody spoke without a laptop, they just slide the laptop over to the next person. But it still worked pretty well. It gave us kind of the same presentation we're looking at now. In some person.
Mickey and Henry, Civic League used to meet in the Learning Lab at Athenaeum, and we used their big screen and camera facilities. They do have it, and they can connect to Zoom, but they've become rather protective of their equipment, and have been telling people, you want to use their equipment, you're gonna have to pay for it. So it would take some negotiation. They do have the equipment, but it's not freely available.
Well, we worked that out with the town association, so we'll see what happens, but I'm sure we could negotiate.
Yeah, ideally the order is extended and this is not something we have to think about for another 18 months.
We shall see.
So Henry, you are aware that we have a 5 o'clock meeting. Civic
Well-
League Executive Committee.
Okay,
So potentially 3 of us are supposed to drop off at 5.
well, hopefully we're done by then.
Okay.
Okay. Questions? Who would like to start?
You mean the survey questions? Henry?
Yes.
Okay.
I should have been more explicit.
Well, Lee and I can go ahead if nobody else wants to, or we're happy to cede to someone.
Go ahead, Mary.
All right, let me bring those up. Sorry, and I'm working with one screen today, so pardon me as it takes me a minute to switch.
Mary, while you're doing that, let me recount for people who are watching that you and I have been engaged in conversation about this for some time. And we had a very lengthy conversation that you transcribed into a sequence of notes. And then we kind of let it cook for a while. We thought about it. I then took that sequence of notes and converted the principal points to questions, which I sent to Mary. And then Mary said, let's make sure that we're asking valid, neutral questions. No lead here. And I think, Mary, that's what you're about to show them.
Right, so I'm going to share my screen. And again, give me a minute to adjust.
If you can expand to full width, it'll be more readable.
Yeah, I will. How is that? Is that legible for
I
everyone?
think that's good, right there, yeah.
Okay, so the first question that Lee and I came up with is a list of intersections, including a line for somebody to add their own suggestion, where, so I characterize them as high volume intersections, where we're wondering what people think would be the recommendation for action at those intersections. ranging from preserve the intersections as they are now, so no change, to reconfiguring the intersection to improve the throughput for pedestrians, bicycles, and automobiles. And I tried to give examples of each of the choices, what that might be. And so these are listed in increasing effect. So preserve as they are now, perform maintenance to enhance safety, but do not reconfigure. So trimming vegetation, adding signage, street markings, repairing a sidewalk. So no changes, but just maintenance. Making small modifications to improve traffic flow, but do not substantially change the intersection. So adjusting the curbing, easing a corner, checking the no parking zones to make sure you had clear passage, that sort of thing. Then modifying the intersection to improve pedestrian and bicycle access and safety, but not changing it for automobiles. So, adding or widening sidewalks and bike lanes, adding stop and yield signs, those sorts of things that might make the intersection safer for non-vehicle traffic, and then reconfiguring for all modes of transportation. So this was intended, to get at the questions that people might ask in a more direct way, like, do you want a roundabout at Six Corners, where Prospect, Vesper, Surfside, Sparks, Atlantic, and Williams sort of all come together, without asking that question directly. It's just giving them the opportunity to consider a range of options and seeing what kind of feedback we get. So potentially they could all say, preserve them as they are now, we want no changes. And that would be important to be able to communicate.
Mary, I've got a point to make, but because you can't see me raise my hand, I'm raising my voice. But at your option, I'd like to add a thing or two.
We certainly can. So this is a draft. Happy to take feedback on the options, on anything in here. Why don't I just go through the questions and then we'll come back.
Okay. When I first saw what Mary had to offer, it wasn't clear to me how it would work. But then I looked at her note, the one at the top, and I said, oh, I can see that. A matrix where row by row, we would have the intersection, and column by column, we would have the choices. And then people could mark in the boxes that comprise the matrix. I think that's what you visualized. I then said, it may take more paper or screen time, but for each intersection, we could list the options. My question to Mary is, did you visualize that somebody could give high priority to more than one option? Or would they be mutually exclusive? They'd have to rank them one through 5.
Sorry, so that is an interesting question. I think that's something the committee could weigh in on. Is I think that they're kind of mutually exclusive choices, though. Mm-hmm. So if you're, maybe we should say something. I don't know, because I saw them as mutually exclusive. So you couldn't indicate that performing maintenance but do not reconfigure it was the same priority as reconfiguring, because they exclude each other.
Well, when we finally give this to staff, they can pick a format that requires people to mark one and only one box.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question, and it may apply to other survey questions, not just this one. But let me move ahead here. So I'm going to go to the next one. The question about parking. If paid parking is implemented in the downtown commercial core, short-term parking area, so that's all of the parking area that is less than 2-hour parking. And then in parentheses, which is not part of this plan's area, trying to make clear that which pieces we're talking about when we're asking the question. How do you think that will affect parking in the areas covered by this plan? So this would be a one answer only. We're asking for their opinion. Do they think that paid parking downtown will have no impact on the rest of us in the town greater area? Do they think it will improve parking availability for us? Potentially because more parking would be available as it turns over more quickly downtown. Do they think it will reduce parking availability for us because people will and evade the paid parking zone? And then it gives an option for another opinion again, so that we're not leading them to any particular conclusion. And then the second question, again, trying to get a sort of one answer to each of these. What measures are you in favor of to improve parking availability in the planned area? And options from no changes to other items. Let me just scroll down. Are there? Yeah, there are more below. And so again, this is somewhere where the committee might have additional suggestions for options. And I thought we would simply present all of them and ask for a yes or a no in terms of if they favored that or not.
So with apologies to Mary, because these questions that I'm asking, we should have dealt with offline, but we've only just circulated it. Mary, the issue of parking on sidewalks. I live on a short street that's got a very short section of sidewalk, and then the rest of the houses have no sidewalk. And yet a very aggressive police officer ticketed 5 or 6 cars that happened to have a wheel on the sidewalk. And the ticket read for obstruction of pedestrian way. And yet, historically, nobody ever used that sidewalk because it terminated, it stopped after 3 or 4 houses. So it is an issue, and it's an issue for enforcement.
Right. So one of the things that I kept in mind was that parking on the sidewalk is technically illegal. So I didn't want to offer a suggestion that was illegal as something, so we'd have to word it carefully. What I tried to do is address that by say, make more streets one way to allow for a parking lane. And that was sort of a way of getting at the issue of people parking on the sidewalks. And let's see, did I have another?
Yeah, but we would point out that there's several streets in our area that are one way, and they still don't have enough room. India, Husey, Gay Street.
Well, so, and again, this is a healthy debate. I'm not disagreeing with you. If it's already a parking space, then parking is allowed there, whether or not you're parking on the sidewalk. If it's not already a parking space, then you can't park there on the sidewalk or not. So again, I wasn't trying to ask a question that would have an illegal answer.
Yeah.
You know, this might be a good question to throw in there regarding parking, is because parking on the sidewalk is not something that we're trying to encourage. I think we're trying to discourage it. And, you know, some people might say that it's just necessary to maintain those spaces, and in some cases it is. So, like on India Street, people park on the sidewalk, and you know, unless you have a big fat truck, you really don't need to in most of India Street. Fair Street's kind of similar. York Street, you really have to park on the sidewalk to park at all, but it completely blocks the sidewalk, so the pedestrians are in the road. So I think it might be worth asking the question, if people feel, you know, what is the priority, parking or pedestrian access? So that might inform the town as to how to handle parking on the sidewalks going forward.
So would you suggest maybe an option here about removing sidewalks to create more parking space?
No, I'd ask the opposite question. Are you in favor of completely banning parking on the sidewalks in our district?
So are we leading in the wrong direction by asking the question about improving parking availability? Or should we ask a separate question? Are you in favor of reducing parking availability to increase pedestrian use of sidewalks? Because I see them as two different questions. This question is focused on improving parking availability.
Well, you're right. So it might be inappropriate to put it in the section, but maybe you could have a whole separate question about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I think to start with, to improve parking availability, rather than, it's hard not to slant it, you know, because
Yeah.
if you start about improving parking availability, everybody wants that. But if you start with improving pedestrian access and pedestrian accessibility throughout, I think that just sets you up for a different question. And my second question is about somewhere in here informing people that with our existing laws, it is illegal to park on a sidewalk. I mean, I wouldn't really know that. I don't think most people know that.
It
Mhm.
certainly isn't enforced on Cliff Road.
Right.
No, I don't think it's enforced on any place but what Lee mentioned.
So I think Mary, you said this a minute ago, and I think perhaps the big question is, how do people want to solve for pedestrians and bikes or whatever, or do people want to solve for parking? And I'm sure the answer is yes, and yes, both. But I think we should pose the question early to kind of get people thinking about there got to be trade-offs if we want to do both.
So what if we asked a question, let me type what I'm thinking. What if we asked it like that? Should the town limit parking? I didn't want to say remove parking spaces, but let's just say limit parking to improve pedestrian access. And there's probably a better way to say pedestrian access.
What if you flip it?
Yeah.
Should the town
Improve pedestrian access by limiting parking?
pedestrian access first?
Mhm.
I know it affects a lot of what
Okay.
and I have been working on with housing, with the cultural natural resources, access to museums. And I'm not sure everybody would immediately understand and think about those difficulties.
Right.
Is there, I don't know how this process works, so forgive me if I'm naive, but is there a place to start out by saying the current situation is parking is not legal on sidewalks, parking is not a, you know, blah, blah, blah. Here are all the rules that are in place right now as a preamble to then help people think about these answers. Because I think if people knew that they were breaking the law, if you will, by parking on the sidewalks, they might think differently about how they answer these questions.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So given that a lot of us on this call didn't realize it was illegal, perhaps there's a way we can, in a preamble, state the current status quo as far as the laws are concerned, and then ask these questions.
Absolutely. So I think what we're landing on is adding a question. The section header is parking. So the first question is about the impact of paid parking. The second question is about improving parking availability. And the third question is about improving
You know, it's pedestrian safety. We're missing the word safety.
let me scroll down. So the third question is transportation. The third section. So what can the town do to improve travel conditions for each of these modes of transportation in the area covered by this plan? So here's really where I would see this third question coming into play. And maybe we need to, I left this very sort of generic. Maybe we need to make this more specific to include some of the options. I left it as just fill in the blank.
Mary, as a nominal co-author, no, don't do that. I think that the question 3 is a parking question and should stay in that section. Otherwise, what it does is it confuses the sequence of choices that we have below.
So specifically, what measures are you in favor of to limit parking in order to improve pedestrian sidewalk access?
You know, do you have to put it in such a sort of a negative fashion? Can you just say specifically, we're talking about blocking the sidewalk for pedestrian access.
Okay, so I'm happy to, we're doing a brainstorming session, in my opinion. I'm happy to keep doing that. There's something more like that.
Better direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, Mary, the way you've got your sections are great. I would sort of think that we might want to move this concept, not the specific question, to the very top. So before anybody answers any of these questions, sort of get them thinking about the fact that it is a trade-off between cars and people.
Okay.
And
That's I like that. I think there's definitely the ability to have a preface.
yeah. So I think if we set it up that way, what we're struggling with is this, conundrum that we have in Nantucket between people and cars. And therefore, in thinking about that, how do you feel about the following?
Okay. So have I captured that, Reagan? A preface with the trade-offs between car, bike, and pedestrian use of streets?
Yeah, that looks great.
Sure.
Okay, well, since we're back at the top here, any other comments on this first one? We kind of pushed past that, but
I think that's fine. I like the grid idea.
This is Mary Ann. I don't have a suggestion so much except addressing the trade-off. And that is, in recent years, there are more cars than ever, mostly because they have increased the number of car ferries in the summer, which I think is a really stupid idea. I mean, that's just bringing more cars, and it's a really easy way to limit it. And the other thing is trucks are bigger than ever. Suddenly, all the landscaping trucks that used to be small are enormous. And so it's not just delivery trucks, it's landscaping trucks, and they're all dragging a huge thing behind them when they used to drag a small thing. And before that, it used to be one guy with a truck and his lawnmower in the back of it. So the trade-off, to me, looks so easy. As long as we keep allowing more and more cars and bigger trucks, how can we even care about the other options?
well, the flip side to that, Mary Ann, and I definitely hear you, but what would be the mechanism to control that? And how could we enforce that through?
The steamship is one way.
No, but the town area plan doesn't have any levers to
Oh,
pull.
yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is I don't see any way to change the current situation without limiting both the number of cars and the size of commercial vehicles. I don't see anything that can be done. We're just stuck with our current situation.
What
So I-
about weight limits?
I think in the context of the town area plan, that could be a call out within the plan to say, we think that the town needs to address the issue of vehicle size and number of vehicles and so on. But I don't think it fits within a survey. If you have a different way of thinking of it, please go ahead.
Yeah, as I was saying, I'm not sure that I have a useful way. I mean, the survey questions are great. I just see that it's an easy trade-off. It's either one way or the other way. And as long as we keep going in the direction we're going, that means pedestrians and bicycles are going to go by the wayside. They just have to make it work as best they can. Sorry. I didn't
Well,
want
the reality
the
bites.
whole
yeah.
discussion, but it just seems so obvious.
Right,
What
well,
about weight limits?
Pardon?
I can rework this. We're at the halfway point in the meeting, so I don't want to take all the time on this, but I can certainly do a little
Okay.
bit more work and bring it back. Happy to do that.
Yeah, Mary Longacre, I was going to suggest the same thing. I think we've had a lot of great input. And Henry, I did hear you about weight limits, which may work because it's something that could apply to every vehicle and would not be seen as exclusionary.
And I did design the questions, at least in their current format, to allow for comment. So people could say, limit the cars, limit the size of the cars, put a weight limit on, do it on my streets, So we definitely have the opportunity to collect that kind of feedback. Marcia,
Okay,
you're on mute.
I have two noisy grandchildren. I should have put me on mute. I have a question about an important aspect of the circulation that we're all experiencing now and in our own driving. And I don't know how to put that into the survey, but that is it illegal also to drive up on a sidewalk curb? Because it's such a major impact on safety. It's so difficult to walk down a street by myself or with grandchildren, with not knowing when a car is going to come up on a sidewalk behind me. And it's just a question, but.
It's a darn good question. Anybody who drives on Gardner Street knows that it's a major issue.
Yep.
Mary, let's see if we can find out.
So just take an email to the police chief.
That's right. Do you know him well enough to schedule a time, or do you want me to call?
I would just send an email. If you want to
Okay.
call him, that's probably a better way to reach him.
Okay, then if you could do that, please.
No, I can't. I have to work during the day, so that's not something that is easy for me to do.
No, I was going to say send an email. Or you
Oh,
send
I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah.
send an email at midnight.
Yeah. No, I thought you were asking me to call him.
No. You said email, and I agree.
Henry, was there someone else who wanted to present today?
well, that was my next question, if you're done. Allison?
I think we talked about my questions last time. I just sent them so that we had them in the mix. I don't think there's anything, unless people have questions after looking at them.
Yeah. Any discussion on Allison's
And Mary's. I don't want to take full
and
credit.
hers?
Henry, could you do a recap of which sections of the plan we now have questions for and which we don't?
I haven't the slightest idea.
Oh, well, I know Marianne had done a set of
I
questions.
know that you and Lee, Allison and you, and Mickey and Marcia.
And Marcia sent another one, right? Didn't Marcia, you send something about housing today?
Yes.
Housing, what I don't have is for the cultural and natural resources.
Well,
So I had a partner with, sorry,
Liz?
Liz. So I will get those in because we are missing those.
well, and
Okay.
didn't Mickey and I send ours, I don't remember the name of our category, Mickey, a while back? I thought we sent ours early on, but I'll.
You did. You did. We talked about them.
Okay, all right, good.
That's because we were talking about the parking.
I had checked them up.
So folks, I hear the challenge. I've got copies of everything that was submitted. I'll count them up and it'll go in the minutes.
Right.
Okay. Good thinking.
It would be wonderful if we could get this survey out in August when people are here and not in November when they're not.
Yes.
Now, Henry, there's an interesting point on survey that I think you and I and Mary should discuss with the leadership in the planning department. And that's whether or not the survey should go to everybody within the boundaries of the town. You'll pick this one up very quickly. Even though downtown may be subject of a separate report, these questions, I think, pertain equally to downtown as they do. Let me put it this way, the donut hole is as important as the donut.
Okay,
So if we were going to target individuals based on where they own or live, how would we reach them? Would it be a postcard, similar to the pool survey? Or would this be available through online links and social media and the town's website and so on?
we could do it both ways, as long as we've got a way to differentiate, you know, where it came from. Like we did with the spa survey. Everybody in the area got a postcard with a specific code. And it also went up on the website. But you could tell, you know, if somebody tried to, I won't say load the survey, but we only had one person that put in 3 of them, and they were all identical. So, I mean, we just counted that as one. But you could tell who came and from where. So I would think that would be the best way to do it.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
Have you talked with Megan about this?
I haven't, no. But so that would require a cost, which we'd have to get them to pay for.
Andrew already asked me, and I haven't got the sense right now. It was $800 and something for the town to do that. So I wouldn't think that ours would be a whole lot more. Anyway, he okayed that. So if it's a lot more, then we'll have to discuss it. Okay, any other discussion?
Well, I think Mickey and I have the housing questions to go over. Do you want to launch into that, Mickey, or we've just got 3 ideas here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. Do you have that? Oh, here we,
I
Yes.
sent it to you, Lee, you've got it, you could put it up.
I can put it up, yep. Is that up for you?
Yep.
Okay.
so I think the basis of this was to try to encourage more people to be living downtown year-round, making it more desirable to live downtown year-round. I guess the first one is really, that does imply seasonal, but still it creates worker housing, which would be important for downtown also. So do you want me to just read through these and you can comment as we go? Okay. To town seasonal or year-round residents, would you consider renting out a private guest room in your house to long-term or seasonal tenants to help create worker housing and provide you with some income? And what assistance would you need to be able to do that?
Mickey, I'm reminded of an architectural feature that I first saw in Kentucky in 18th century dwellings, where the guest bedroom had a separate entrance and staircase isolated from the rest of the house. And of course, we do that now with fire escapes and outside staircases.
Yeah, I think it definitely addresses a similar issue, and I think there's lots of opportunities downtown to create. If it's a first floor bedroom, all you have to do is put an exterior door in it. I mean, there's a lot of ways to handle this, but I think the question below, what assistance would you need to be able to do that?
Sure.
Might help encourage people to look into it more, that don't know how to go about it.
So Mickey, I think you're right. It does apply to seasonal or year-round residents. I'm just remembering when I was a kid, we were here seasonally and we rented out rooms to seasonal workers for the summer. So certainly summer residents could also rent out rooms on a
Mhm.
seasonal basis, and year-round could rent out on either a year-round or seasonal basis. So-
Exactly, right.
Mickey, I'm unclear about the word assistance. So what assistance would you need? Could you give some examples of what somebody might think about?
Well, I think a lot of people wouldn't really know what kind of permitting is required to do that, or how to physically rearrange their houses, architecturally to get that to work. So that might, I'm not sure what we're implying, if, what kind of assistance we're willing to provide.
Right. Well, so I think maybe saying that and saying, putting some examples, for example, would you need help with paperwork? Or would you need help with architectural, building adaptation? And I don't know what the other things would be, but I think we need to give them some examples of what we're asking, really.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the assistance could simply come from people who have done such renting. Right, so maybe they make a network connection to people that already do that and do it successfully and have had good experience.
How is this different from Airbnb?
Well,
Because-
I don't think it is. I mean, I think when Mickey and I worked on this, we worked on, instead of saying bedroom, we said private guest room, but it is essentially Airbnb. It's just either you let Airbnb do the management or you manage it yourself. But,
Right.
I've also done it both ways myself, and it's been an incredible opportunity. I've met some amazingly wonderful people. I just had a young woman who rented a bedroom from me, and there happens to be a back door. I think most houses have a back door. I didn't have to add a new door. She could use the front door, but she was working remotely and rented for a month. And it was wonderful. I mean, I feel like I have a new longtime friend. And I also, when you work with Airbnb or you work with your own set of kind of house rules, you're able to do that and answer many of a person's questions about credibility, or because Airbnb does all those reviews. Everybody, the host and the person renting, gets reviewed, and who you've got coming in to stay with you.
Well, I think we should say that, Marcia. I think part of what we might be asking is, are you willing to do this either on your own or through an Airbnb or like organization? And if on your own, do you need sample contracts? Do you need sample agreements? Do you need, what do you need?
Right. There are things like
Marcia and Mickey, I've got 3 points at your
okay. I just
your
want
option.
just to add in that I recently renewed my homeowner's insurance and found out that there was, by the insurance agency, that there was a new state law that said I had to up my liability. It wasn't a whole lot of extra cost, but I increased my homeowner's liability insurance for doing this. But just like the house rules, meaning you can control things like a curfew, you can control many, many different things. And so somehow I agree with you that somehow wording, some kind of to connection to people who have done this successfully.
So
Worded this separately. Lee, I'll follow you, but just thinking about
my 3 points. Assistance, by the way, could also be financial. Much as people can get grants for restoring an historic home, in addition to consultation, there might be some form of funding. 2, Airbnb is defined as really short term, and we're talking about longer term. So that while we may want to pick elements of Airbnb, let's be careful. This is not a B&B situation. And then finally, the Civic League, led by Peter Morrison, had proposed over a year ago, setting up a marketplace to help town workers find a place to live. And so if we move forward with this, we may be able to capture what they proposed. The reason we don't know about it, or you don't know about it, is that the Civic League wasn't prepared to go full-time into this business and was looking for somebody to adopt it, and that didn't happen.
So as Lee was saying, Airbnb is mostly known for short term, but their platform does handle longer term rentals. And rather than saying the name of a particular platform, we probably want to just use words like online hosting platform, because Airbnb is not the only one.
Right.
And there is now a Nantucket-based hosting platform, which I forget the name of. It's probably something simple like nantucketrentals.com or something like that. I don't know if that's right. So we probably want to use some generic language. But I was just thinking, what if we worded this as a however kind of a question? So have you ever rented out a room in your house to a long-term or seasonal tenant to help create worker housing and provide you with some income? And the answers would be, no, I never have. No, I haven't, but I would consider it. Yeah, no, I haven't, and I'd more information. Or yes, I have, and I would continue to go, or yes, I haven't, and I would not continue to do so. And that might give us a way to introduce some of that other information.
I like that. I think it gives us more information, but still asks the same question.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if I can. See, I'm the one sharing this, so oh, this is a PDF that you sent me. I can't edit the PDF. I think I can. Yeah. Okay. Do you want
Mary, I am able to edit a PDF, so we're running out of time. If you'd send me a note with the things you want, I will put them in some format to show that these are edited editions, and it'll go in the minutes.
Yeah, I think it does show that by what Mary just did, right, in blue.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to question 2?
Yeah, so question 2 is, if you were a seasonal town resident, what might attract you to live here year round? If you're a year-round resident, what will you need in the future to enable support or encourage you to stay in your home? All targeted to try to get people to be here more year-round, and stay here into their elder age.
I think that one's pretty straightforward.
I guess that is. So we'll need a blank, just sort of fill in the blank with whatever you got. And then number 3, are there quality of life needs or concerns that affect your desire to live in town year round? And that's just a big question about what bothers you, or what do you like about town, or what don't you like, or do you like? What do you need? Sidewalk conditions, street lighting, traffic, parking, noise, safety issues, etc.
I really like how that's open-ended. I think that's a great question.
Are
Yeah.
you thinking that we would have a preface on this section, something along the lines of, the town area has a lot of homes that are empty or occupied, that are homes that are occupied only seasonally, and thinking about ways to make more use of that space?
I think that's a good preface, something to that effect, to get to the point that we're trying to take better advantage of the housing stock in town, but also encourage more year-round residents.
I would state, I would state it, what is it, what's our what is it we're trying to get to? So in
Yeah.
order to encourage more year-round residents, we are asking blah, blah, blah.
Well, I think the underlying idea to me to encourage this is a revitalization, is an active, vital town. Well, I mean, many of us do live in town, but I find it rather discouraging to see my whole neighborhood empty out. And it seems to be a waste. And I think it affects the downtown core. I think it affects everything. I mean, to me, COVID really changed my experience in the neighborhood, just in seeing joggers and walkers, people walking dogs, people going for coffee. It just felt more alive in the off season.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have, that we give a little bit of direction here, because otherwise these questions may not give us the answers we're looking for.
But there are two objectives, right? To revitalize town and to figure out ways to address the housing shortage for year-round and seasonal workers. So that's why I like how the questions are.
I mean, they're seasonal, they're year round. They're people that come here on short-term projects. Some are hired by the town. I mean, right now it's quite a diverse group for additional housing.
Well, we add to that the fact that the town is now hiring specialists who do not live in Nantucket but need to visit from time to time.
Yeah.
Our transportation planner being the best example of that.
Or even the traveling nurses.
Typically, they're housed by the hospital.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay,
It's been valuable, Henry. This has been very valuable.
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
I take it it's unanimous. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Aye.
Okay.
Bye.
Stop recording.
And Mary, if you'd capture these changes and send them on to me, I'd appreciate it.
I will, Lee.
When are we meeting again?
I think it's Friday, July 15th.
Correct.
Bye-bye all.
Hi.
Thank you.